bathrooms. There's an all-gender restroom in the hall of entrance to the left, and there's women's and men's multi-stall restrooms through the double doors and through the next double doors. There's a bottle filler in that next hallway, and we'll have water, tea, and snacks during intermission. Relax and enjoy.
From where you're sitting, it's obvious. But in the spring of 1942, we were at war, with no way of knowing how it would come out, or whether we would even survive.
You have to remember that none of us on the Fair Play Committee were anti-war. We were fighting for democracy, for American principles. This was our war effort.
Everything I did in connection with the evacuees was from a feeling of guilt that a thing like this could happen in this country of ours. That if all of us had worked harder at making democracy work, it wouldn't have. And I hope that if I should someday find myself penned in behind a fence under armed guard, there might be someone who would help me from the outside.
You won't find my sermon for that Sunday in the church library. I regret that now. Maybe I was ashamed of it later, but still, it was something. But I'll always remember what Dean Deutsch wrote to us while the evacuation was going on. People fail to recall that these people who are being evacuated have had no charges against them individually. They are not guilty of misconduct. They are being removed because of fear, which is gripping the hearts of some people. Amen to that.
As an old man, ex-Governor Earl Warren wept at the thought of innocent little children torn from home. Still, he never made a public apology for supporting the incarceration. Then again, even liberal Democrats said nothing against it. As Senator Robert Kennedy later put it, I was missing.
Our mission was not to help the evacuees directly, but to change public opinion from coast to coast so that they would be welcomed home when the war was finally over.
I had an argument on campus with a neighbor of mine who thought that I was just an unrealistic. How discouraging that an educated, intelligent person like her felt that the evacuation was right and necessary. I figured that swaying all the public opinion she represented wasn't going to be easy, but Mrs. Kingman and I, assisting her, are going to dig in and try. That's why, in January of 1943, I got a part-time job working at the Chronicle and quit my job in the church to give more time to help Mrs. Kingman with the Fair Play Commission.
We missed you, Eleanor.
When I read Miss Breed's diary in 1974, after millions of Americans forced an end to the Vietnam War, I thought, if this happened now, we would stop it, wouldn't we? Or would we? Maybe it will help to know what happened in early 1942 and what happened next. Then judge for yourself.
Scene 1. We are in the office of First Congregational Church of Berkeley. At the center of the stage, there is a desk, partly facing left, and fitted with a chair, an old-style Bakelite phone, a Rolodex, a typewriter, a small switchboard, and a vase of flowers. A flight of stairs leads from the stage to the floor of the auditorium where, on a vertical plank, are nailed the address numbers 2, 3, 4, 5. At stage left, there's an overstuffed chair beside a credenza on which sits an old-fashioned radio. At stage right is a wall with a door leading to an inner office. Upstage, we see a wall in the center of which is a pair of double doors. A spotlight shines on the radio. Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate and of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation and at the solicitation of Japan was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense, but always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but we will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
On February 19, 1942, President Roosevelt signed and issued Executive Order 9066, which stated in part, "Now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I hereby authorize and direct the Secretary of War and the military commanders whom we may from time to time designate whenever he or any designated commander deems such action necessary or desirable to prescribe military areas in such places and of such extent as he or the appropriate military commander may determine from which any or all persons may be excluded, and with respect to which the right of any person to enter, remain in, or leave shall be subject to whatever restrictions the Secretary of War or the appropriate military commander may impose in his discretion. The Secretary of War is hereby authorized to provide for residents of any such area who are excluded therefrom such transportation, food, shelter, and other accommodations as may be necessary, in the judgment of the Secretary of War or the said military commander, and until other arrangements are made to accomplish the purpose of this order."
Throughout April and May of 1942, posters like this appeared all over the west coast of the United States. And on April 24th, 1942, this poster was tacked up in Berkeley. Instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry living in the following areas: all of those portions of the counties of Contra Costa and Alameda, State of California, within the boundary beginning at Carquinez Strait, then southerly on U.S. Highway number 40 to its intersection with California State Highway number 4 at or near Hercules, thence easterly on said highway number 4 to its intersection with California State Highway number 21, thence southerly on 21 to its intersection with California State Highway number 24 at Walnut Creek, thence westerly on said highway number 24 to the southerly limits of the city of Berkeley, thence following the southerly city limits to San Francisco Bay, thence northerly and following the shoreline of San Francisco Bay through San Pablo Strait and San Pablo Bay to the point of beginning. Pursuant to the provisions of Civilian Exclusion Order number 19, this headquarters dated April 24, 1942, all persons of Japanese ancestry, both alien and non-alien, will be evacuated from the above area by 12 o'clock noon Pacific Western Time, Friday, May 1st, 1942. In other words, precisely a week ago. No Japanese person living in the above area will be permitted to change residence after 12 o'clock noon Pacific Western Time, Friday, April 24th, 1942, without obtaining special permission from the representative of the Commanding General, Northern California Section, at the Civil Control Station located at 2345 Channing Way, Berkeley, California.
The spotlight picks up a slim co-ed in saddle shoes, a plaid skirt, sweater, and white blouse, carrying 2 textbooks, a wooden pencil case, and a yellow legal pad, as she walks up the aisle to the stage.
My name is Shirley Henderson, and in April of 1942, I was a student at Cal, taking no notice of anything around me, particularly not my neighbor's distress. Sure, I heard FDR give the Day of Infamy speech, and sure, I knew that Japanese people were viewed as a threat even before that, but I didn't have any friends involved. 12 years later, I would be a member of this church, and 20 years after that, I'd be on its Centennial History Committee, digging through papers, trying to work out how was Vera Loper, the pastor I came to love and admire, involved in this irrational, racist reaction to Pearl Harbor? Why was my church, the place where whole families of Japanese and Japanese American Berkeleyans were registered, loaded onto buses, and sent off to mass incarceration? Why the tacit acceptance? Why didn't we rise up in revolt? Why indeed?
The lights go down on Henderson and up on the stage as she goes on speaking.
In April 1942, Vera Loper was a new, inexperienced pastor, fortunately with a crackerjack secretary, Eleanor Breed. And by the grace of God, a church member and former missionary to Japan named Ruth Kingman, second in command at Stiles Hall, Cal's YMCA. Because just a week before that poster went up, Ruth was on the phone talking with a friend named Marjorie Walker.
Scene 2, afternoon of Saturday, April 18th, 1942, the office of First Congregational Church of Berkeley. It is empty and dark, except for Ruth Kingman, a cheerful-looking woman sitting at the desk on the phone, nicely dressed in a light blue suit and matching heels, her abundant hair pulled back from her face.
Hello, United States Employment Service? May I speak to Marjorie Walker? Thanks, I'll wait. Hello, Marjorie. It's Ruth Kingman from Berkeley YMCA. Remember? We met at First Press at my Japan talk last year.
Either as a voice or in another office on which a light goes up.
Oh, hi, Ruth. Of course I do. Didn't your husband, Harry, practically single-handedly introduce baseball to Japan? I hear it's pretty big there now, or it was.
Watch out, you'll give Harry a swelled head if you tell him things like that. Listen, Marge, we are in a pickle. They say Berkeley Japanese registration and evacuation starts in a week. Yes, I said a week. And listen, Harry says the place the Army's picked is that old Auburn dealership with the fence around it on Shattuck. You know the one?
Oh, God, no. I mean, sure, I know that place. No lavatories, no shade, no shelter if it rains, like it's supposed to, and no benches. What in the world is the Army thinking?
Exactly. 1,000 people to register, and meanwhile, all these angry people driving by staring may be worse.
Horrible. I heard some poor people in San Jose had bottles thrown at them. What a world. But you have a plan, am I right, Mrs. YMCA problem solver? Okay, give.
Okay, here goes. You have someone from the Army on staff, right? How about if you ask him if they can use our Pilgrim Hall instead for the Civil Control Center in the large assembly? If it's not too late to retype the posters or whatever else they've got to do.
Sergeant Wilkins was just over here flirting with me a minute ago. Let me go grab him. Hang on a minute.
Long pause as Kingman examines her nails, covers her face with her hands, and then clenches them as if in ardent prayer.
Yes, yes, he will. He hated that fenced around the lot in such a horrible shape. Impossible to defend, he said. And the idea of his soldiers standing around in the rain? How soon do you want him? He needs to look it over pronto to see how many doors there are and if they lock. Ask if he can come over tomorrow morning and check it out.
She cranes her neck to look at the double doors.
Yes, I'm sure we can lock them, but tomorrow morning is out. It's Sunday, church, remember? How about this afternoon? I have a key. In fact, I'm here now. I'll ask Dr. Loper to come meet your sergeant. He's my next call.
Don't you have to consult your presbytery or something?
We don't have those here. We just need board and council approval, and they meet tomorrow and Monday night, respectively.
Hope to God they say yes.
I hope to God they do too. If they do, Marge, I owe you a ride to Blum's for a coffee fiesta Sunday.
Lights go down, they leave. Scene 3, it is Monday, April 20th, 1942. The lights go up on Breed's desk in Pilgrim Hall of First Congregational Church of Berkeley, 2345 Channing Way.
We are at the hub of the church in Old Pilgrim Hall, the church office with mailboxes, mimeographs, and the secretary's desk. There behind the office is the pastor's study. Church Secretary Eleanor Breed has gone to a lunch meeting of China Relief, an organization to help people of China displaced by war with Japan. She is its secretary, having herself lived in China in the 30s. Having raised $6,500 of their $10,000 goal, they've decided to send out 3,000 more letters. After ordering more copies of the letter, pledge cards, and return envelopes, and arranging things with the addressograph office, Miss Breed returns to the church.
Eleanor Breed enters briskly from stage left and goes to the desk. She wears a pert hat and a hairstyle of 10 years earlier, a smart but modest dress in a dark print and white collar, and sensible low-heeled shoes. She unpins her hat and sets both it and her purse on the file cabinet. The phone rings. She takes her seat and answers it.
Hello, First Congregational Church. Yes, Ruth, the board gave it the go-ahead, and church council meets tonight at 7:30 for the final vote.
5 soldiers enter. She waves to them to wait a moment.
I'll call you tonight. I have to go.
Breed hangs up, addressing Wilkins.
May I help you?
Sergeant Wilkins, we need to decide where to set up. First, we have to register all the evacuees. The heads of families will need to give us all their information, but the families may come in too. So it would be good to have them wait somewhere else. But we don't want any troublemakers getting in, or anyone making a scene. I hear it's possible to lock the exits.
Yes, this door and the door into the cloister are the only ways in on this level, and the basement doors are locked.
Well, can you show us around? We'll need 1 soldier at the curb, 2 here, another soldier stands in the control station.
She reaches into a drawer for a bunch of keys and comes around the desk.
Of course, right through here, Sergeant Wilkins. How long will the registration process take, do you think?
Well, there are 4 days between the start of registration and the start of evacuation. So no longer than 4 days.
And in between, the Japanese have to clear everything out of their homes and decide what they can take with them?
Well, most people have been doing that for weeks now. Some parts of the state have already gone through this, but in other places, it hasn't started. With little official information, people are trying to learn how it works from everyone else by asking and trying to follow how the other fellow did it. We'll see how it goes.
They leave through the doors that center back. Scene 4, the night of Monday, April 20th, 1942. The lights go up on a circle of metal folding chairs with Veer Loper in rumpled, old-fashioned clothes and a bad haircut, council member and Women's Association member, plus several non-speaking parts seated on them.
On that Monday night, the motion offering Pilgrim Hall to the Army passed the council with only 1 vote dissenting.
I don't believe for 1 minute that we should cooperate in this dirty business. No, I refuse to allow our church to become a patsy for the Army's racist clearouts. I mean, half the white farmers in the valley have been calling for this for 30 years. Was there a war then?
I hear you, John, but even if we rise up as a body, the Army won't change its policy. It will simply force these poor people to sit in the sun or rain on Shattuck Avenue and do their dirty business there.
Well, set me down as a nay, but if the rest of you see fit to conspire with the Army, I move that at least we see that some courtesies are extended to the evacuees far beyond anything anyone expects of us.
I'll second that. We in the Women's Association can open the parlors and put out flowers everywhere.
Flowers? You think people need flowers? There's going to be old folks and children. They may have to wait a long time.
Well, nothing says that we can't set up cots in the kindergarten room for people to rest. And I still say flowers are nice. And I'll scare up some rugs to cover the linoleum floors.
I'll ask Miss Breed to find us hosts and hostesses to serve tea and fruit and sandwiches and greet people as they come in. Would everyone here be willing to help with that?
All in favor?
Aye.
The lights go down and they all go out. Scene 5, the morning of Tuesday, April 21st, 1942. Lights go up in the office. Loper rushes in from his office, fingers in his shock of hair. Breed returns to her desk.
Miss Breed, I know it's late, but could you type up all these plans? Did you get my notes from the council meeting?
Yeah, you mean about where to put the 15 organizations that usually use Pilgrim Hall on the weekends, and how to get the choir to the loft without entering the church building, and where to put the Boy Scouts and where Winthrop is meeting? I got them all right. Seems as if church council hasn't worked this hard since the end of Prohibition sent us scurrying around making new rules for everything.
Bless you. If you can get all that ready for the Gazette, I believe I'll write up a pamphlet for us to hand out to the evacuees, expressing our sympathy and support.
You'd better run it by Dr. Nothing Moves But I Know About It, Mitchell, and the rest of the Berkeley Fellowship lunch clergy before it goes to press.
Good point.
As Loper returns to his office, Breed begins typing and the lights dim.
Miss Breed didn't reach home until 10:50 p.m. that night. On the following day...
Well, actually, he can do that.
Oh.
On the following Saturday, this article appeared in the Berkeley Gazette. Pilgrim Hall used as CC, Civil Control Station. On Sunday, April 26, 200 church school members will meet in main auditorium. Young People's Comparative Religion in Tower Room, kindergarten in the ping pong room of Plymouth House, College of Life adult group as usual in Plymouth House with Galen Fisher speaking to the title, Hard Nuts to Crack in the Post-War World. Winthrop League meeting with Plymouth Church in Oakland, Plymouth House as usual, YBPG, Young Business and Professional Group, at the Loper's home, 1620 Leroy, to see Marjorie Sellender's Pictures of Japan. Young Marys will meet as usual for music and records. The evening service, usually held in Pilgrim Hall, will be in the main auditorium featuring Dr. Raoul Aurenheimer, Hitler, Today's Napoleon. Broadcast on KRE, the church's radio station.
Scene 4, mid-morning of Tuesday, April 21st, 1942. Breed is on the phone.
Oh, hello, Dr. Mitchell. Dr. Loper wanted me to be sure you will be at the Berkeley Fellowship luncheon today. He has something he would like you to discuss with you and all the clergy. Good. No, thank you. I can call the others myself.
Loper races by with a typewritten paper in his fist.
Dr. Mitchell,
Dr. Loper.
confirmed
Oh, sorry, go
he
ahead.
will be at luncheon, but now I need to get to the calendar to the printer. And so, is your sermon title still, Has Science Outmoded Religion?
I suppose not. What do you think?
I think that when history in the form of the government evacuation of Berkeley citizens comes to our doorstep, you shouldn't ignore it.
You're absolutely right. But I have 2 funerals today, and now I hear Fred Granger has died, and I want to run this pamphlet to the evacuees by the fellowship luncheon.
Waves a piece of paper.
Maybe tomorrow I'll have a bright idea for the sermon.
Rushes off stage left. Phone rings.
Hello, First Congregational Church. Oh, hello, Mrs. Haddon.
Well, I just wanted to say, I heard about the church's program for the Japanese, and I'm so proud I want to weep. Dr. Hayden asked to be a host on Sunday if he can be of service.
I will make a note of that, Mrs. Haddon. Dr. Loper will be pleased to hear that you are happy about what we're doing.
Wilkins comes in, doffing his cap.
Good morning, Miss Breed. My team is here to set things up in the large assembly. We have a switchboard with 8 phones to plug in. Can you show them where the phone plug is that's closest to the stage? And do you have dining tables that we can set out?
Breed grabs her steno pad and they hurry out the back center doors. Soon Breed is back, pushing her hairpins into place. She picks up the phone and dials.
Hello, Joan. This is Eleanor. Can you come down and help me make some signs for the large assembly? Oh, surely you can make them up in the classrooms. We need public telephone, lounge, women's restroom, men's restroom, kindergarten. Am I going too fast for you? Okay. Berkeley Church Hospitality Committee, and long arrows we can point any way we like.
She flips the pad closed.
Wonderful, thanks.
The moment she sets down the receiver, the phone rings again. She picks it up.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello, I'm from the Berkeley Gazette. Is it true you're registering Japanese in your church sanctuary this Sunday? Where are you planning to hold church services?
The Civil Control Station is here in Pilgrim Hall, so services will continue as usual in the sanctuary. You might mention that we're organizing refreshments and a place for the families to rest while they're waiting. We expect about 600 people each day.
Refreshments for 600. Got it. Gosh.
Breed hangs up as Loper enters from stage left, waving the pamphlet.
Mitchell wants it rewritten. He wants it to come out from the whole fellowship. And I'd better run it by Kim Obata at the JACL, and probably Galen Fisher and Mrs. Kingman on the Fair Play Commission. Do you have their numbers?
As Breed flips through the Rolodex, the phone rings. As she talks, she writes on her steno pad, tears off a sheet, hands it to Loper, and goes off stage right.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello, Eleanor. It's Julian Arnold. I understand you need help with the China relief letters tomorrow, and I've rounded up 20 volunteers. Where will you want us, and how many are left to be done?
Oh, thank goodness, Julian. I almost forgot about China relief. All 3,000 letters, if possible, and I have 3 cartons to take to the post office. I'll set things up in the small assembly bright and early tomorrow morning. The large assembly will be getting set up for the Japanese evacuation.
Well, that'll make an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, yes, you let not your right hand know what your left hand doeth. You are an angel.
Oh, sorry, Breed hangs up. Wilkins pokes his head out of the double doors.
Sorry, Miss Breed. We can't find the overhead light switch. And do you have any thumbtacks?
Breed grabs a small box from her desk drawer and hurries upstage. Loper comes in holding a paper. When Breed returns, he slaps it on her desk.
Here's the revised statement. Maybe give it a final working over and then send it off to the printer. 1,500 copies to be on the safe side. By tomorrow? Now I've got to robe up for that funeral.
Loper turns on his heel, returning to his office. Breed picks up the phone and dials, pamphlet in hand.
Hello, Berkeley Printing? I'm calling from FCCB. We need a single-sided 8.5 by 11 pamphlet, blue ink on ivory paper, 1,500 copies by tomorrow.
She pauses. What kind of miracles?
What kind of miracles do we expect of you over there? And what's the sermon title?
Oh, just your usual miracles is where we are, sorry.
Just your usual miracles, Bob. No calendar yet. No sermon title yet. We should have something by tomorrow.
She hangs up. She freezes at her desk, and the stage goes dark except for a spot on Shirley Henderson.
But tomorrow, Wednesday, April 22nd, 1942, 1,000 people came by to ask 1,000 questions, only to be commandeered to address envelopes, paint signs, and make a duplicate card system for Dr. Lopez's air warden file. The China relief letters were all done by noon, and Julian Arnold took them off to the post office. Dr. Loper worked out a hospitality schedule. The Congregational women got the first day, the Episcopalians the second, and so on. And no, he didn't get his sermon title done that day. Before Miss Breed could get to go home that night, friends from San Francisco came by, the Kajiwaras.
As lights go up on Breed at her desk, in walk the Kajiwaras, a young Nikkei couple, each carrying a heavy rolled-up rug.
Eleanor, you are still here. Jim said you must have gone home by now, but I said, nope, the light's still on.
You know you're a fan of all things Chinese, and these are brand new. Could you keep them for the duration? I don't trust the new guy who's renting our house.
They unroll 2 blue rugs.
These are lovely. They are a perfect match for my 100 Babies tapestry from Peking.
She bursts into tears.
You poor things, having to leave your pretty houses. I can't just take these. I'd feel like a war profiteer.
Nonsense. Couldn't be under better feet. We hear great things about your work here, don't we, Grace?
Great things. We're all doing our bit for the war effort. Our bit is to clear out for a while. That's all. Jim and I will put them in your car. You don't need to do a thing.
They go out with the rugs. Breed sinks back into her chair and pulls out a large hanky, mopping her eyes. We have an interlude. As we see Mine Okubo's drawings of leaving her house, Dorothea Lange's photos of businesses selling all their inventory, one with "I am an American" tacked outside, 2 witnesses appear at the podium, Ron Dellums and Richard Allen. The action described could be pantomimed or portrayed with puppets or art.
My home was in the middle of the block on Wood Street in West Oakland. On the corner was a small grocery store owned by Japanese American people. My best friend was Rollin, a young Japanese American child, same age, 6 years of age, the day the Beacons trucks came to pick up my friend. I will never forget the vision of fear in the eyes of Rollin, my friend, and his pain of leaving home. My mother, as bright as she was, try as she may, could not explain to me why my friend was being taken away as he screamed that he did not want to go. And this 6-year-old Black American child screamed back, "Don't take my friend." No one could help me understand that. And it wasn't only Japanese Americans who felt the emotion. They lived in the total context of the community. And I was one of those people who lived in that community. I will never forget it. How do you compensate Rollin, 6 years of age, for the fear of leaving his home, his community? Compensation for the thousands of dollars of his family's personal belongings that were strewn on the streets of 10th and Wood Street in West Oakland in 1942. Because in case you don't know it, they could only take what they could carry. And so the little football that Rollin and I played with, thrown into the street. The board games that we played that took up hours of our time in the street. the furniture that we romped on and wrestled upon as children in 1942, thrown into the street.
My father was a porter for Southern Pacific, and my mother was a homemaker who greeted neighbors from the kitchen window as they walked to catch number 3 streetcar on Grove Street. When I grew up, I taught English at Berkeley High School for several decades. But as a child, I used to play with my Japanese-American friends on Grant and Stewart Streets. Yoshiko Uchida family lived nearby. In spring of 1942, everything changed. I remember one mother, a Japanese-American woman, I don't know who she was, brought her 2 kids to our front door. She said to my mother, "I have some toys that I'd like to give you. We have to go away." She had a wagon of toys. My mother said yes, but it was very sad for me, a horrible thing. All my friends were taken away, and why? For the first time, I became aware of racial differences. Memories of that day still bring tears to my eyes.
Scene 7, the morning of Thursday, April 23rd, 1942. The lights go up on the secretary's desk. Breed comes in, puts away her purse and hat, and settles down to work.
Hello, Berkeley Printing? Eleanor, yes, Bob, I do finally have that title, Paying the Fiddler. And here is the paragraph I promised you. I had to write it myself, so here goes. Parishioners should bear in mind that due to the evacuation of Japanese families, Pilgrim Hall will be off limits from Saturday, April 25th through Monday, April 27th. And also that Dana Street between Durant and Channing will be closed to traffic from Tuesday, April 28th through Friday, May 1st. For Army businesses, the church services, though, will be held as usual in the sanctuary on Sunday, April 26th, but all classes and presentations on schedule for Pilgrim Hall will be held in Plymouth Hall on Durant Street. Please look for informational posters in the entryway.
She sighs and sits back.
Yes, I think that's it. We will put other details in our Friday Gazette ad.
As Breed hangs up the phone, Wilkins walks in, followed by 5 soldiers carrying rucksacks.
What can I do for you?
Good morning, Miss Breed. These men are posted to the Civil Control Center for the evacuation process. Can you show me where they'll be quartered?
Quartered? Here? Overnight?
That's right, ma'am. For about a week. We have cots, and they have all their gear. We just need a room to put them in through May 1st.
Loper comes out of his office. He and Wilkins exchange nods.
I'll take them around, Miss Breed. We have plenty of rooms.
Except for North Room, the parlor, and the kindergarten room. They're reserved for our evacuees.
The soldiers exchange glances as they follow Wilkins and Loper.
By the time Miss Breed got her church ads and news stories to the paper, the broadcast announcements to the recording studio, and the other work off her desk, the printer brought by completed copies of Loper's pamphlet for the evacuees ready for folding. You each have a replica of Loper's pamphlet in your programs, as close to the originals as we could make it. A single-sided 8.5 by 11-inch printing job, blue ink on ivory paper, but not 1,500 copies, not nearly. Quite an accomplishment, but the day was not yet over.
Loper looks out as Breed is packing up to leave the office. Marion Rosen enters.
Leaving so soon, Miss Breed? It's only 5 o'clock.
Marion and I are off to iHouse for Professor Obata's painting demonstration and a display of his pictures. Have you met Marion Rosen, our Dr. Loper?
Pleased to meet you, Miss Rosen. Miss Breed tells me you have recently escaped from Nazi Germany.
Yes, with my whole family, praise God. But we are scattered across the globe. My parents are in England, and my sister in Sweden. My brothers are in Switzerland. I thought I was very fortunate to make it to Berkeley.
We are fortunate to have you.
Marion and I are planning to pool our funds to buy one of Professor Obata's pictures. They are all for sale at whatever price people want to pay.
He says he will use the money to establish the Obata Scholarship for any art student most in need, regardless of race or creed. It is a very generous act.
And yet, next week, he will be evacuated with the rest. What a world where gentle souls like Chiura Obata become enemy aliens.
Eleanor tells me you will open your church to the Japanese enemy aliens. Is that so, Mr. Loper? Do you know that being a Jew, I became an enemy alien in my own country. And now, being German, I'm an enemy alien here. I must be in my room every night at curfew time.
As I said, what a world. Well, it surely was a pleasure meeting you, Miss Rosen. Enjoy Professor Obata's display.
Thank you. Eleanor will make sure I'm in my room on time.
We have an interlude. You're supposed to be hearing Jimmy Dorsey's band play their 1939 hit, Now You Know, but we don't have any sound things today, so we're listening to this while Chiura Obata's sketches and paintings are projected, and Rosen and Breed admire them. You have to imagine that we're in iHouse and seeing the show. And we're listening to music. I can't sing it for you. I wish I could. It's pretty great, though. Look it up sometime. Jimmy Dorsey, Now You Know. Scene 8, the morning of Friday, April 24th, 1942. The lights go up on the secretary's desk as Breed enters the office, a bundle of big hand-painted signs under one arm. A helper steps into the office from stage left, carrying a box that she sets on Breed's desk. It took us an hour, Miss Breed, but those statement pamphlet things are all folded. Anything else we can do?
You could put these lounge goes in North Room, and Berkeley Church Hospitality Committee goes in the parlor. The rooms are all labeled in pencil on the back. Oh, don't go into the large assembly. That belongs to the Army.
I did look in by accident. They have official signs: Federal Security, Federal Reserve Bank, Employment Service.
Yeah, it's all very official.
The phone rings and the helper leaves stage left with the signs.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello, this is Ruth Price from Berkeley High School. Do you need another hostess at the church tomorrow? So many of the Japanese young people have been my students, you know, and I want to help them in any way I can.
Certainly. I will be here at 8 o'clock.
Oh, sorry, I have to run. Thanks. See you tomorrow.
The phone rings the moment Breed sets it down.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello, Miss Breed. This is Dr. Auernheimer. You know about Nazism I am speaking on Sunday night?
Oh, hello, Dr. Auernheimer. How can I help you?
I wanted to compliment you on your choice of title for my talk, Hitler, Today's Napoleon. And I wondered, is it true that the church is now a civil concentration center for the army? That these poor people must gather there to be deported?
Civil Control Center. Not deported exactly, but sent to camps. Japanese from San Diego and San Francisco have already been evacuated to holding camps. They are not...
Not concentration camps? But must they not leave everything but a few items behind? And meanwhile, their houses, their businesses, all are lost, as mine was lost.
No. The government will make sure no one does anything to their houses and businesses. Or their neighbors will.
Loper comes out of his office, a newspaper in his hand, curious.
War makes good people do terrible things, Miss Breed. I am glad that you are offering a little food and shelter. There will be many old people, Many little children, many mothers with babies, I know. They will need shelter while they wait for Papa to fill out the forms. I know that too.
My sister Clara is a children's librarian in San Diego, and all the little Japanese children who used to be her best visitors are being sent away. She gave them books at the train station and postcards to write to her. But
She pulls out a handkerchief.
I thought the war would stay far away from us, Dr. Hammer, but how? Now it's right at the church door. We can't go against the government, of course, but...
Yes, Miss Breed, we all do what we can. We try to wage peace. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Breed hangs up, removing her glasses and wiping her eyes with a start. She notices Loper standing there.
Did you see this piece in the Gazette about China Relief? China Relief Drive needs about $2,000, and then it says, Miss Eleanor Breed, Secretary of the Committee, has helped considerably in her spare time.
Yeah, spare time.
The phone rings again, and Loper lingers, watching her.
Hello.
Is this the Congregational Church?
Yes, sorry. How can I help you?
Will you answer one question for me? Why must we be so nice to these people? Feed them lunch, give them tea and hospitality. They aren't treating our boys that way. She holds the phone a little away from her ear. Loper bends over to listen.
Well, we here at the church are held to what we think are higher standards than the usual tit for tat. And we don't punish people for the sins of others. These are good people, most of them American citizens, and just as sensitive and humiliated as we would be if this had happened to you or me. Even if one of them did something wrong, someone once said you must love your enemy. And if they are all innocent, tea and hospitality aren't too much to offer them. But Matthew 10:42 says, if anyone gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward.
Well, I'm not sure what the right thing to do is, I guess. I mean, we all have to do what the government says, don't we? I get all mixed up.
So do I.
Well, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate your explanation. She hangs up and notices Loper.
My dear late father quoted that verse to us girls at the mission in China when my sister Clara gave away her favorite book and regretted it later.
Who was that on the phone? Not a member of the congregation, I hope.
I don't think so, but she didn't give her name.
She pushes away from her desk.
It makes me gladder than ever that you and the council approved Mrs. Kingman's and Mrs. Walker's idea to open the church. Can you imagine the kind of awful abuse people might have had to listen to waiting out in the open on Shattuck?
They're both silent a moment.
It starts tomorrow, the registration. The decree from Caesar Augustus. Mrs. Kingman will be here at 7 o'clock to let them all in, the stenographers and all sorts of government officials. She says not to worry, she has a key and will act as receptionist and then direct traffic while you handle church business once you arrive at 8 o'clock. I'll be here as soon as I can to make sure volunteers don't get underfoot.
Starts tomorrow. When does it end? When can they come home?
God knows. When will the war be over? But what little we are doing here is making a difference, Dr. Fisher says. He tells me Mrs. Kingman already has appointments at registration places in the Central Valley to show them how we do it here, how to wage peace, as the man said. Then she's headed to Washington.
Washington? What can she do there?
Remind Congress that our citizens have certain civil rights, no matter where they come from or how easy it is to spot them in a crowd. I understand that Dr. Sproul over at Cal is writing to Governor Warren to complain about his support for this evacuation. try to get him to change his tune.
Will all of this be in your sermon on Sunday?
My sermon states that our existing racial prejudices have been fed and fostered by hate news in the papers, and that unless we tear them out by the roots, they spring up at the least provocation into full-blown persecution.
The least provocation? Pearl Harbor was more than that. China was more than that.
Yes, we've all been watching the treatment of China by Imperial Japan, and we've all been horrified. But can you think of a single Berkeley Japanese who said it was right? And yet they are all punished for the actions of a government many of them fled Japan to avoid.
I read that Italians are being moved away from the Navy yards, or they have to stay home, like Marion Rosen.
But are Italians and Germans being sent to camps? No, this is something else.
So you're saying that we whites have been fostering hatred, and now American Japanese have to pay the price? But your sermon title is Pay the Fiddler, not Pay the Piper.
You pay the piper when you have to pay for your fun. The fiddler is someone we don't like to talk about in our church much. Satan, the father of lies, the lord of the flies, who is currently fiddling up a demon dance of hate.
Like in Disney's Fantasia last year, the frightening part, not the dinosaur part where I fell asleep.
Yes, the part where the demon unfolds. Hitler is calling the dance, but we'll be sucked in too if we don't watch out. Part of me thinks we are dancing to his tune already.
He points at the double doors behind him.
What is going on in there is the result of a stream that has been poisoned at its source. You can't put a pat explanation on the source of that poison any more than you can tell who crucified Jesus. Was it the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the money changers, Pontius Pilate? And where does hate come from exactly?
Yellow journalism. The Examiner always says, Japs this, Japs that. Makes me sick. You don't see that word much in the Chronicle. So, is the sermon all written?
Almost. All I need is a good story, the hook to catch their attention.
Might be a good many of those stories by the end of tomorrow.
End of Act 1. We'll now have an intermission for 15 minutes. You can stretch and have a snack. There's not going to be a reception afterwards, so if you want to power up now for the talk afterwards, this is your chance. We have free goodies at the Hall of Entrance. In about 15 minutes, we'll call you back. Set your call.
happened here?
Act 2, Scene 1. We are in the office of First Congregational Church of Berkeley on the morning of Saturday, April 25th, 1942. The walls are gone, and we see into the large assembly, where a soldier stands guard at center stair, heads of families being interviewed by officials, and their stenographers. Worried families wearily climb stairs or sit in lounges. Hostesses and hosts bustle around with lemonade and sandwiches. Loper darts here and there, talking to them. Breed is at her desk typing. And artist Mine Akubo reflects.
I think I'll be okay in the camps. I won't complain in the camps if there's just one tree. Is that so much to ask for? Just one tree?
What will it be like?
Will they kill us?
Will we ever see our house again?
What will we eat?
Where will we sleep?
What about my tree nursery?
What about my books?
What about Ji-chan?
Isn't he too sick to move?
Will there be any hospitals?
Any churches?
Any schools?
Will I ever graduate?
What about the dog, the cat?
Who will take the dog, the cat?
Who will keep my father's ashes?
As people disperse, Loper returns to his office, and Jensen, an older white man, sets a box on Breed's desk before sneaking upstage towards the double doors. Breed looks up and hurries over.
Mr. Jensen, I'm afraid you can't go in there.
Why not? Isn't this our church anymore?
She walks him off stage left.
But we've loaned it to Uncle Sam temporarily, and right now he's making the rules.
Phone rings. Breed hurries to answer it.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Will there be church tomorrow?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, I thought maybe the Japanese were taking over.
No, only Pilgrim Hall is affected. But you may want to come up Durant instead of Channing. Details are in the Gazette.
An older couple enter by the front stairs, Walter and Leslie.
Hi, Eleanor. Ready for lunch?
Sorry, Les, I have to take a rain check. But would you like to see what we've done to the building? I've got to take these sandwiches upstairs, and you can come along.
As the three friends go off stage left, a young Japanese-American man, Hiro Kitayama, comes to the desk carrying a smallish, heavy box carried in a white furoshiki.
Excuse me, is anyone here?
How can I help? Hello, I'm Vera Loper.
Hiro Kitayama.
Glad to meet you, Mr. Kiriyama. What can we do for you?
Mr. Loper, I have a great favor to ask. Could you keep my father's ashes here at the church for the duration? We don't dare leave them in the house in case it's looted.
We do have a safe place for them, but if you'll come into my office, I can call the chapel the Chimes in Oakland. That would be safer. I'm happy to pay for
I have called them. They refuse to help me.
Then we would be honored, Mr. Kiriyama. Will you come with me? I will show you our trustees' room where we store our archives up in the tower. It's quite secure.
Would it be possible to say a prayer for the soul of my father to dedicate the space where his ashes will lie?
Yes, I'm empowered to bless such a space. If you wait here a moment, I will change and arrange a few things.
Loper goes into his office and comes out in his robes and stole, carrying a small leather case. Breed re-enters with her friends.
Oh, here you are, Miss Breed. If anyone asks, I have taken Mr. Kitayama up to the tower room to store his father's ashes.
As the two men leave upstage left, the couple exchange a glance.
Well, isn't that something?
Leslie, you should tell Eleanor what Sato told you.
You know our gardener, Mr. Sato? Well, he came by this morning to say very politely that he was sorry, but he couldn't do the garden today. He had to go to the First Congregational Church and register. You know, he told Walter, they're going to serve tea. It's the only church in the state of California that is serving tea to the Japanese.
We had to boast we were members of that wonderful church, and I could see he relaxed a little, gave us a smile.
As they leave, Loper returns, slowly and alone. Breed watches him thoughtfully.
Bet you got that hook for your sermon now.
I sure do. But do I dare use it?
Why not? Seems to me the congregation needs to know the kind of heartache these poor people are going through. Is it true that Leslie Gardner told her that we are the only church in the state giving hospitality?
So far, that is the case. But Ruth Kingman has gone off to the valley to work with 2 churches there. On another subject, Miss Breed, do you have any need of a cat?
A cat? No, it's against my lease. Why?
You see, they can't take their pets along. They are worried if the animals are sent to the pound, they'll be killed.
I'm sure if you ask in church tomorrow, people would be happy to help. Ever wish you had said no to lending the army the church?
No, God forbid. God knows it's little enough. And tomorrow I intend to give you full credit for badgering me into changing my sermon. I have taken for my gospel lesson Matthew 10:42, as you suggested. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. How did you put it to the lady on the phone?
That even tea and hospitality isn't much.
It sure isn't. These little ones. It's a painful passage to read about adults, but I swear before God that they are as innocent as any children of any kind of conspiracy.
Running his fingers through his hair.
It stinks, Miss Breed. No good will come of it.
I agree. But what will happen to them next? How do we make sure they won't be hurt or go hungry?
We must keep track of our friends the best we can. Find an excuse for them to write us, to be sure they are safe. Something official that the Army can't stop.
Marion Rosen says we should announce that iHouse is making a booklet of collected stories to help other evacuees. She says that might just get past the Army censor.
Loper makes a face, nodding in agreement. Then he looks up.
On a more cheerful subject, if you'd like to stay late tomorrow, I'll be marrying one of our soldiers to his sweetheart, who followed him out here from Minnesota.
Oh, why, of course. I'd love to.
Capital. And don't tell the sergeant. But during registration, I heard one of the soldiers ask a local evacuee if he knew a good place to eat. And now all 3 soldiers plan to meet with a bunch of young Japanese guys for dinner tonight when they go off duty.
There you go. Good old America.
Scene 2. Sunday and Monday, April 26th and 27th, 1942, the church office.
By 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, April 26, 1942, the second morning of registration, Pilgrim Hall was already crowded, with people waiting 2 deep in the reception room. Mrs. Kingman stood at the doorway like a head waiter, giving out pink tickets with numbers on them. Church parents who dropped off their children on Channing for Sunday school as usual were startled to see a soldier at the door. Miss Breed asked the church member to direct them along Dana to the front door, away from Pilgrim Hall.
Loper's sermon was pretty good, and he asked about homes for the evacuee pets. After the service, one of the deaconesses remarked to me, "I'd be glad to take a Japanese cat if it will get along all right with my American cat."
Lights go down. Breed goes off left.
Now it's Monday, April 27th, a rainy and cold day, and the soldiers stood inside the doors for shelter. Evacuees consulted lists posted around the central office, learning of which of the 5 groups their families had been assigned to, finding the location of that group's waiting room, settling down to wait, read, and talk in low voices.
Breed enters stage left, leaving an open umbrella to drip in the hall. Soldier stands center stage stairs. As she stows her purse and hat, the phone rings.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello? Listen, do you have any Chinese members of your church? My Japanese servant has to leave, and I just thought you could find a Chinese for me. I just don't know what I'm gonna do.
Sorry, can't help with that.
Well, that's too bad. Goodbye.
Honestly.
A crowd of cheerful Quakers enter, one with a big cake box.
Hi there. We're from Berkeley, friends. Where do we put the sandwiches?
Oh, I'm sorry, but we don't need them. They all went home to pack. Only took 2 days to register all 1,100 Japanese people. It went much more quickly than the Army thought.
Well, are there any dogs left? I'd be glad to take one. It doesn't have to be a fancy dog, just a mutt puppy.
We have a bulletin board for people in church to check. Here, write down your information, and I'll post it on the board.
Second Quaker does so.
What should we do with the sandwiches?
You know, the soldiers get pretty hungry. Just set them on that table in the entryway.
They do so and leave, clearly disappointed. The soldier has been listening.
Thanks, Miss Breed. You know, yesterday evening we went over to Miss Chandler's next door for strawberry shortcake. Listen, is she all right? I mean, she can't hear much or really even sit down.
The deaconesses have tried to get her into a rest home, but she likes her independence. Comes over here to chat sometimes. Her eyes are all right.
I guess so. She has piles of books and lent us a couple. Well, I hope you can make her understand how grateful we are. Back home, we don't get strawberries till June.
Listen, you tell the boys that all of you are invited up to my house for dinner tonight, if you don't have dates. I'll give you the address in a minute, say about 7 o'clock.
Soldier nods eagerly. The phone rings.
Hello, First Congregational Church.
Hello, got any dogs? I live in a trailer and work at Richmond Shipping Yard.
Breed mouths to the soldier. Another dog request.
I'm sorry, no. But if you give me your phone number, I'll put it on the bulletin board.
No, that's all right. But do you know where my wife and I should go to adopt a baby?
Sorry, can't help you with that. Maybe the Red Cross?
Scene 3, Tuesday and Wednesday, April 28th and 29th, 1942. The church office. Henderson stands stage center. Loper stage right. Breed stage left.
On Tuesday, April 28th, a pioneer group of evacuees left the church for Tanforan Assembly Center. Not even the Army knew where they'd go after that. Many states wouldn't take them.
They were waiting when I arrived at the church that morning. Lovely Anne Saito of the staff of International House went out on the very first bus. She had a secretarial job at Tanforan, waiting for her.
On that same bus was a newlywed couple, arm in arm, the bride wearing a cowl bandana, a flower in her pompadour, and a big American flag in brilliance on her lapel.
2 babies in baskets, a 3-week-old girl and a 6-month-old boy. But whatever their ages, each person had a paper tag attached to them somehow, printed with their name and number representing their family group.
One girl in slacks wore it on her Phi Beta Kappa keychain.
The Baptists sent over a nice group of women and retired minister who was just too ministerial. He bustled in everywhere and went around shaking hands with the evacuees and saying a hearty, "God bless you." He didn't notice Anne and Nucci exchanging a smile.
I was embarrassed, but how do you deal with a fellow minister? More than half of the people here are Buddhists, and blessing these people does not solve their problems.
I'm thinking of James 2:16. If a brother or sister is naked and hungry, one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm, eat your fill," and yet you do not feed or clothe them, what is the good of that?
So faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. But I wonder, is that what we're doing, Miss Breed? Saying, go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill? When we have no idea what will happen to them next.
As their duffel bags were loaded into the first big bus, the evacuees went aboard, waving and cracking jokes with friends who waved them off.
But Anne Saito was crying.
When Miss Breed arrived at the church at 8 o'clock the next morning, Wednesday, April 29th, she found a line of baggage down Dana all the way from Channing to Durant. Duffel bags, suitcases, folding chairs, ironing boards, cartons, bundles, blankets, card tables, and cribs.
One very nice suitcase I saw had stickers saying Rome, Paris, and Hotel Metropole, Beirut.
The street was blocked off, with policemen at each end permitting only cars unloading bundles to drive through. Along came a big moving van and a trailer to carry everything off to Tanforan. And then the call went forth for young men to help.
Either Loper acts out the scene or we see an ensemble pantomime.
In a jiffy, they'd organized a sort of bucket brigade and were swinging the bundles and duffel bags along a line and into the truck, as if they were glad to have something to do. But I noticed they were careful not to speak Japanese, not even to the elders.
That Wednesday, the Methodists outdid themselves, bringing enough tea and coffee and sandwiches for hundreds of evacuees and all the government workers, the soldiers, and the bus drivers too.
There were so many that I had to run all over the place, putting out tables and getting some kind of system going to speed things up. Even so, we had leftovers for the Presbyterians to inherit the next day.
Loper walks back into his office. Breed resumes her desk.
I was continually on a trot, running out to the street to see off each busload of evacuees and running back inside to hunt up the janitor to put more TP and towels in the bathrooms, then upstairs to track down Dr. Loper for something, and then down again to the switchboard buzzing away, then off to get the janitor to turn off the heat.
Loper runs out of his office holding up a letter.
Miss Breed, look what just came in from Dean Deutsch at the university, out of the clear blue sky. Has the calendar gone off to the printer yet?
Yes, but we could maybe add a paragraph. What did he say?
Allow me to express my own appreciation for the attitude which you and your church have taken with reference to the Japanese and the American Japanese who are being evacuated. Your action has been one that is proper and will impress these people with the fact that the ideals which we profess, we try to put into practice. If any criticize you for it, my only thought would be that they are not truly Americans or Christians.
Choking up a little.
Personally, I feel that our country will someday feel ashamed of its conduct in this entire matter. In the meantime, however, it is good to know of actions such as you and the members of your church have taken.
Breed wipes her eyes and blows her nose.
Good old Deutsch. I'm curious. Have any church members complained about our actions?
Not that I've heard.
She takes Deutsch's letter.
Me neither. None of them. None of our people, anyway. I would call this into, I'll call this into the printers. Let's see how much of it they print.
Scene 4, Thursday, April 30th, 1942, the church office. Henderson stands Sage Center. Breed is at her desk. Soldier is posted at the foot of the center stairs.
Thursday, April 30th. It rained on and off all day, And when Miss Breed arrived at 8 that morning, she saw another long line of luggage along Dana Street, and the soldiers on guard, and the first group of evacuees all ready to go. Inside, Presbyterian women were flying around the kitchen and up and down the hallway, handing out food and sympathy. Maybe a little too much sympathy.
A kind old woman stops a little girl who waits, holding her mother's hand.
Oh, honey, is it hard for you to leave home? I'm so sorry.
The little girl bursts into tears. Mrs. Stanley Hunter, the pastor's wife, rushes by.
Excuse me, Mrs. Hunter, would you mind scolding that nice old lady's daylights out of her?
Mrs. Hunter bundles the kind old woman off stage.
Excuse me, but I would very much like to give the church a donation for all you're doing to help us.
Oh, no. It's the least we can do. Maybe you can use the money for play equipment for the kids at camp.
With a bow, the young man leaves. Soldiers watching all this.
You know, Miss Breed, me and the guys are sure going to miss being posted here.
You like sleeping in the nursery?
It's not so bad. And when we're off duty, that lounge.
The Boy Scout room.
The Boy Scout room is great for lazing around. And every afternoon there's coffee and sandwiches, and every night someone invites us out for dinner.
That's nice. And the high school girls seem to like you too.
Yeah, well, they're pretty cute.
Did you see that big soldier from Tenflin playing hide and seek with that little boy around the big sycamore by the curb?
He shouldn't ought to do that, not when he's armed. Kid could get hurt.
That Thursday, things got personal for the office people when the Sato, Abata, and Takahashi families left Berkeley.
Loper emerges from his office.
Last fall, my colleague from the Japanese Congregational Church married Kimio Obata and his bride, Masa Sato, in our sanctuary because their church in El Cerrito was too small to hold their many friends.
Kim and Masa are both graduates of the university, and he is the son of Cal art professor Chirura Obata. Madame Obata arranged all the flowers for the wedding, and the autumn coloring of the giant chrysanthemums was reflected in the gold dresses of the 6 bridesmaids.
The benediction was in Japanese, and the groom didn't kiss the bride. But otherwise, it was a thoroughly American-style wedding with a big reception at the Claremont Hotel afterwards and many flash photographs.
Today, I took snapshots of Kim and his bride in front of the church where they were married, but against a background of luggage wearing their identification tags.
As a wedding gift, they'd been given their own shop in Oakland, but after December 7th, they had to shut it down. Now they are working night and day to clear out his parents' Obata studio on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley.
Obata moves among them with his sketchbook, noting everything. Sato comes center stage, and the Takahashis go to stand by Henderson.
Professor Obata left today too, but seemed determined to capture everything, sketching the whole process in a little notebook, the large assembly full of desks, the silhouette of a soldier at the door, a drawing of people getting on the bus with the church tower high above.
Mr. Sato, the father of Kimio's bride, Masa, was a deacon at the Japanese Congregational Church and gave a dwarf maple to Berkeley's Mayor Gaines with a letter.
Thank you for the privilege of having lived in Berkeley and for the protection my family and myself have enjoyed.
Sato brings forward a bonsai for Loper.
Today, Mr. Sato gave me a beautiful dwarf pine tree. When I told him how sorry I was this war had come along to dislodge him and his family from their home, he smiled with tears in his eyes and said,
It's because the people forget God. Back there in Japan, the people forget God.
Then, all on the same bus, there was a Takahashi family all Quakers and long residents of Berkeley, all graduates of the university. The elder, Mr. Takahashi, had planned the gardens for Treasure Island 3 years earlier. His wife was a picture bride from Japan and an accomplished translator. Since their son, Dr. Henry Takahashi, was not allowed to practice optometry in segregated Berkeley, even though he was born here and was a leader in the local community, he commuted every day to San Francisco's Japantown to work. He and his wife, Barbara, could have moved inland, but decided to evacuate with his parents to Tanforan and Topaz. Years later, they told me.
You know, Shirley, it's a funny thing, but the camps gave us access to leadership opportunities denied to all minorities in Berkeley. I practiced optometry there, for example, and Barbara headed up public health services.
Nikkei children filled all the school leadership positions at Topaz, played on all the athletic teams, and ran all the school newspapers. They were taught to be self-reliant, but also not to revere their elders. It left a lasting impact.
The camps were more equitable than back home in Berkeley.
But I wonder what the Issei thought of it.
Takahashi's exit stage left. Friday, May 1st, 1942, Dana Street, piles of bedding, suitcases. Reed stands in front of them in her sensible clothes and little hat, a crockery cup in hand.
Friday was such a lovely sunny day. I'd hate to leave Berkeley when it looked so beautiful. The first bus left at 8, so I was down at the office earlier than ever at 7:30. Ambulances were sent around evacuees' homes to collect 8 people with mumps and 10 with measles and take them directly to the hospital in San Bruno until they recovered. At church, we seemed to have the very oldest and very youngest evacuees that day. Seeing one paralyzed old man carried onto the bus on the back of his son and an old lady lifted up the steps, I thought, how terrible for these frail people to leave their familiar surroundings. For the first time, it really hit me that people will die. People will die, leaving their homes. But we had babies too. One little mite, just 10 days old, and an older baby in a basket. So enchanting.
The Nikkei mother crosses from stage right, a baby in her arms.
What's his name?
Ronald, a third-generation Sansei American. So of course he has an American name.
She goes off left.
But Patty Yoshida was my favorite. Just 8 months old, dressed in a knitted pink jumper suit and with red apple cheeks. My black and white snapshots don't do her justice. I'll never forget the picture I took of her in the bus window, chewing on her ID card. I thought to myself, so that's what an enemy of the state looks like.
A young man crosses from stage right.
Excuse me, Miss Bree. Remember me from our house? I'm Lo Yunpeng. Lo Yunpeng. Has Mari Kyogoku left yet, do you know? She was on the staff there, and a bunch of us are here to see her off.
Breed steps over to a register on the church wall.
Maria's in group 5. They are assigned to the north room upstairs. I'll run you up there. Follow me.
The phone rings as they leave. Loper comes out of his office, looks around, and answers it.
Hello, Dr. Loper here.
Oh, hello, Dr. Loper. It's Julian Arnold. I wanted Eleanor to know that the final numbers from Berkeley's United China Relief Drive are in.
He picks up a pencil and a card.
Really? What are they? I'll leave her a note.
$14,000. I'm wiring the news to Madam Chiang Kai-shek.
Golly, I'll be sure to tell her.
I understand that the church is helping the local Japanese. Seems like that puts us in danger of extremists.
Not as much danger as these people would have been in if we hadn't loaned them our space. And this is Berkeley, Julian. We'll be okay.
Breed returns with Kingman.
Oh, there you are. Julian Arnold called.
There wasn't enough helpers up there to pass sandwiches and tea, so Mr. Lowe helped out. That's a sight I won't soon forget. A Chinese refugee helping Japanese refugees.
Kind of makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? And Mrs. Kingman, good to see you.
Loper steps forward, takes Kingman warmly by the hand.
You know, I was just telling Julian Arnold just now, you remember Julian, Ruth, he's on the China committee, that we're in no danger for harboring our Japanese neighbors. And I think other churches could do this if we taught them.
I remember the sergeant telling me that everyone is learning how it works from everyone else, from us.
That's why I stopped by, Dr. L. I've been out to the valley, and I'd like you too to outline your work here for the Fair Play Committee. Make a template for other churches around the state to follow. Dr. Fisher says that what we're doing is changing attitudes on both sides. Why, just yesterday in Sacramento, a World War I veteran, a Japanese-American man, you understand, told me, I know now there are Americans who don't hate us, and that makes a world of difference, just to have friends.
We think these ideas are some quirky notions of our own, but I believe they come from the Holy Spirit. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
It feels small, but maybe it isn't.
Not small, not one bit small, Nellie. Now I'm going to leave you two to write up that template. Oh, and Galen wanted me to tell you, ask the evacuees what worked best for them. Be humble, listen more than you talk. And God bless you.
Kingman turns, leaves stage right. Breed sits down at her typewriter, slips in a piece of paper, and begins to type as Loper sits opposite, leaning in, murmuring over her shoulder.
That Friday, the last bus for Tamperen left at noon. In the afternoon, the government workers, as Miss Breed put it, dwindled away. Then came the business of collecting signs, replacing posters, clearing up debris, returning to be a church.
The old office seems unearthly quiet. I'm not sure I'm going to like it.
Elsewhere, things were anything but quiet as May unfolded.
Act 3. 3 scenes on 3 parts of the stage. Stage center is a pulpit. Stage right is a back stair with a small incinerator. Stage left, a rickety desk and chair made from planks. Scene 1, stage center, a Sunday in May 1942, Japanese Methodist Church, Los Angeles, Reverend Lester Suzuki presiding.
Brethren, we are facing the eve of evacuation. We must evacuate our homes and churches and be taken to strange places, and we will not know what will happen to us. This is our last Sunday on which we can worship in our own sanctuary. This Wesley Chapel is only a year old, and it is the first chapel in the United States built for the sole purpose of taking care of the religious services of the Niseis. And it is all yours. You paid for the pews, the altar, and you contributed to the building of it. But now you must vacate it, not knowing whether you will be able to use it again. When Abraham, at the age of 75, was told by God to leave his country, God said to him, I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. We have no such promise given to us. Our Issei parents are not young anymore. All that they have established, they will have to abandon after many years of hard labor. But we as Nisei still have a future, and we must face this in the right way, or else we fail miserably. The first epistle of Peter says, Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the elect who are sojourners of the dispersion. he might say to us, to the Japanese who are sojourners of the dispersion in Santa Anita, Manzanar, Parker Dam, and other places, we are subjects of the army, and we will have very little to say as to what happens to us. But Peter says, be subject to our masters, not only to the good and gentle and kind ones, to the ones who seem to be friendly to us, but also to the ones who are cross and unkind and unsympathetic to us. It is better to suffer for doing right than for doing wrong. That is the way Jesus suffered, and he is now in heaven at the right hand of God. Jesus is the example for us, not our own little selves. Jesus did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth. Yet when he was reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to him that judgeth righteously. We too, when we are reviled, revile not again. When we suffer, we do not need to threaten, but commit ourselves to God, who judgeth righteously. A plant is made perfect in a hotbed, but when it is transplanted, it needs to be strengthened by being watered and cultivated and nurtured. And then when all that is done, it grows into a full-grown plant that bears fruits for the farmer. And so we too, when we have gone through the middle of suffering and we stand the test, we can become perfect, and God will stabilize us and settle us into men and women who have God at the center and therefore are well settled. Let us face what comes with courage and faith. But God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. Amen.
Scene 2, stage right. Tuesday, May 12th, 1942, somewhere in Oakland, a backyard. It is getting dark, just after dinner. Stairs lead down, stage right, from the kitchen to the yard. At a little distance away, stage left, there's a small incinerator from which wisps of smoke rise. We hear faint sounds of Italian opera music from the radio inside. Fred, a young Nikkei man, is hiding in the shadow of the stairs. Ida, a young Italian-American woman, comes out of the kitchen door with a bundle of kitchen garbage wrapped in a newspaper. Ida walks down to the incinerator, opens the metal door, pops in the trash, brushes her hand, and starts violently as Fred steps from the shadows. They briefly rush into each other's arms.
Fred, slow down a sec. Why aren't you in Tan Fran with your folks?
I have to see you, Ida. Let's run away like we planned.
Where? To the moon? We can't go anywhere, remember?
Arizona, I got it all worked out.
Oh, Fred, honey, you know I want to, but wouldn't you get arrested the minute we got there?
No, I'm gonna change my eyes, change my name, anything for you, babe.
Another embrace, more kissing.
Okay, I believe you. Well, if we stay here, my folks will never let me marry you. They tell me stay away from that Chinaman.
Mine neither. All Italians are mobsters. But now they're in Tanforan and I'm out here. We can do what we like.
Woman's voice calling from the kitchen. Ida, dove sei? Cosa fai là fuori?
Let's do it, Fred. Let's go to Arizona like you said. It's a free country, ain't it?
Scene 3, stage left. Sunday, May 17th, 1942. A desk in Tanforan Assembly Center Barracks, San Bruno. Slides show the barracks, the stables, a cook, the gate, people in long lines as Kitayama writes or strides around.
May 17th, 1942. Letter to Reverend Vera Loper of First Congregational Church of Berkeley from Mr. Hiro Kitayama in Tanforan Assembly Center, San Bruno. Dear Dr. Loper, greetings and salutations from Tanforan, where good horses, about 8,500 strong, exercise and go through the motions of thoroughbreds day after day. 17 days for me now. It has taken me just about that much time to readjust myself. At first, I didn't think I could ever be contented here, contented in the sense of making the best of a bad situation. However, time seems to be the ever-efficient doctor, seeing everyone roundabout go about their new lives with vigor and energy as buoyed by once dissatisfied nature. I'm considering my previous experiences in recreational guidance. For some unknown reason, I've been made the supervisor of Sunday schools for the whole camp, and also I'm assisting in the realization of an educational program at the earliest possible time. Already, we have managed to get a Mr. Kirkpatrick from the Oakland educational system to supervise our efforts. However, it is needless to say, many of the activities are disorganized, requiring more efficient handling and management. Already we hear jibes of politics among our own people, hiring and firing people, getting good jobs, trying to run the camp, etc. It is shameful, but perhaps time again will be the good healer. After 17 days, the food has improved many-fold. Our only complaint is it is yet inadequate. Our helpings do not as yet fill the depths of our enlarged tummies. We dine at what they call the main mess hall along with 2,000 other people for 2 weeks. Under such a condition, it is understandable how difficult food preparation, cleanliness, adequate diet, etc. are to maintain. It was during this particular period that I thought the basis of my life dropped out. Perhaps if such conditions prevailed much longer, as far as I was concerned, I might have been whooped. Fortunately, our sectional unit mess hall opened, which feeds only 400 in our particular section. The cook is a former caterer from San Francisco. Just recently, he was released from Missoula, Montana, along with Mr. D.T. Uchida. Therefore, the cook, Mr. Kimura, appreciates the value of good food in camp. He does surprisingly well with the ingredients he is given to prepare. Our unit kitchen is classed as the best and tastiest among the 7 other units scattered about the 117 acres. Unfortunately, some units are not ready to open, which makes it necessary for some 4,000 to eat together in the main mess hall, where poor food, poor sanitary conditions, poor service prevails. I am certain in time this too will be improved. Among our vital statistics, there have been 2 births here in camp that I know of. It is rumored there are 5 in all. There have been 2 deaths about which I know. Epidemics of German measles, mumps have been going around since camp opened. The few doctors here are overtaxed with cases. As yet, the hospital facilities are inadequate, but rapidly taking on the appearance of a well-equipped hospital, though a barrack is being used for the patients. The first day I arrived, my family and I were taken to 83-4, which is room for 4 in a 5-room barrack. The rooms are 20 by 20. There are 5 of us in this room. All we were given were 5 cots and 5 Haytick mattresses. Since then, we have built 2 desks, my neighbor's and my own, a bookcase, a series of shelves for our clothing, a closet for our suits, coats, etc., 3 benches. The lack of good wood prevents me from further building at this time. I drowned my sorrows in carpenter work for about 2 weeks, along with my other activities. Now I can boast of my accomplishments. Incidentally, I am very grateful that we landed in a barrack rather than a horse stall. Perhaps you already know all about them, so I will not write further about them. Suffice it to say, the government made a big mistake sending evacuees here before work was completed. Dr. Loper, I want you and your staff members to know this letter is written to you by one with a very thankful heart for all you have done for us all. Yours truly, Hiro Kitayama. Mother, thank you very much for caring for Dad's ashes.
Lights down on Kitayama. Spotlights downstage left and right. Chiyuro Obata steps into stage left spot.
In April of 1943, 1 year after leaving Berkeley, I wrote these words from Topaz, Utah to Miss Eleanor Breed. My wound was made by a blow struck with a blunt metal instrument on my forehead over the left eye. There were 10 stitches taken. Although the wound is healing, I still do not have any sense of feeling around it, so I'm taking things easy. Why I was attacked, I myself do not know. In the relocation center, the general colorless scenery, the whitish gray of the barracks, no green vegetation growing, can cause even a person in a splendid state of mind to weaken to rumors which are constantly present. It seems one implied that I was connected with the FBI. In any case, this abnormal state of life can contribute to such dreadful acts. I feel very sorry for the attacker who has not yet been identified, for his attempt to kill or hurt me will not better his life. You know that this is my first experience of not doing anything, as I've never been sick. So when I first came into the hospital, I began writing letters and sketching, but the doctors refused to let me do any more until now.
Breed steps into the stage right spot.
And I wrote back to Professor Obata, such a stupid business, exposing so many good people to discomfort and indignity just because a few are suspected. Such a stupid business war is anyway.
Stage goes dark. End. Well, thanks to the gang back here. Couldn't have done it without you. And thank you so much, Marianne, for the flowers and your accomplices over there. Yeah, this is I think a bit of ikebana going on here. I may have to do something special with this. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have a little conversation at the end here. If you got questions, we have a few of us who will stick around and answer questions just for another few minutes, like maybe 15, 20 minutes. If anybody's interested, we're happy to answer whatever we did not cover in the performance, if you have any questions. So I think that let's see, who would volunteer to stay? Let's see, I got Leonard and Gary and Marianne and Carmel and me for sure, and the rest of us can stick around if we want to. After that, if anyone else wants to get to Fenton's before we get there, go ahead and save us a big table, okay? I'm not kidding about that. It's serious stuff, all right? Okay. Sure, if you got to go, you can go. Oh, yes, donations, yes. If you haven't, if you don't like working with QR codes and you'd like to give a donation to Tsuru for Solidarity, I would most appreciate that. Anything you put in the basket that Molly brings around will go directly to them. We were hoping to have Mike Ishii here today to tell you more about it. Basically, this is a group of Japanese Americans who are standing with people who are being deported by our government at present time to places unknown and places they know really too well, as you know. And so they are doing, as they say, I think as I put in the message there, we're doing for them what we wish someone had done for us. So it's an excellent organization, and please be generous as you give. There's a QR code on the back on your program notes, or you can give cash or checks as Molly comes around. As I say, if you have to go, there's no shame in leaving. If you'd like to stick around for the Q&A, we won't keep you too long. So come on down, and we have some microphones we can hand out to you. They're all quite live. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. We'll get you a mic. Okay, here we go with Nick. You can get the ball rolling with this microphone.
So Kate, can you tell us a little bit about how you created this amazing presentation? There's so much detail. How did you get started, and how did you collect all this all the information of what was going on?
Well, luckily, Nick, somebody already asked me that question from the cast, so I actually kind of remember how it went. About a year ago, February, I heard about this exhibit being put together by the Berkeley Historical Society on Japanese Americans in Berkeley. We were also coincidentally working on the 150th anniversary of this church. I was on that committee. So I said, what better way to find out more about what we did as a Civil Control Center than to bring my presence to the group that was working on the exhibit. And I was going to be kind of an ally from our church and try to share whatever I found out about what we had done. So I got a hold of Milton Fuji, who had rescued a folder of information that was not burned down when Pilgrim Hall went up in smoke in 2016. So he had a photocopy of a photocopy, and I started with that. And they were the papers that Shirley Henderson put together in 1974. There are a lot of people still alive, including Chiro Obata himself and other people, with Kingman, who is still around. And she interviewed them, and she collected all these letters that had been sent to the church. So she put that together. It is now in the Bancroft Library, and I was able to see the originals of these photocopies of photocopies of photocopies. And all the pictures in the collection were taken by Eleanor Breed. You saw a lot of them tonight. They're the official pictures of anything you see here on campus that happened. And I read her diary, and she put it together, and she called it "The War Comes to the Church Door." And it was day by day, just like you heard it, and with lots of weird details that had caught her eye. I also had the notes that Vera Loper had taken and put into a little memorial. I put those together. So between those and the letters, I transcribed the whole thing. It took me about 2 weeks, February last year, just sitting in a comfy chair, doing the OCR scanning and you know, fixing things in the typewriters, you know, had written and stuff like that. So we used some of it in the exhibition, and then some things came out of the exhibition, like the interview with Richard Allen. That's actually on the walls in the exhibition. If you haven't seen it, it's going to be through September, Thursdays through Saturdays, 1 to 3 at the Berkeley Historical Society. It's right next to the farmers market in the Veterans Building. You can't really miss it. So yeah, so that got the material together. And when I saw Breed's diary, I said, there's a play in there. This is a play. And I'd written a couple plays for church before, sort of a classic, you know, first you start in church and then you go elsewhere sort of thing, Christmas plays and things like that. So I thought, yeah, there's so much here, it shouldn't be that hard. So I actually started the writing, I think, last fall. And I got to tell you, the first day I sat down to it, I had this fit of twitching because it was so tough. The stuff I was reading was so tough. I had to just set it aside and kind of come back to it a few days later. So it's good stuff, but it's tough stuff. But that's, yeah, I started writing it then, and it's still being worked on. So it's sort of finished, but obviously not in time to find a producer to do it with the scenery and everything as described. But thanks for asking. How long did the internment last? It lasted right through the whole war. People were still interned in 1945. A lot of people got out because they were doctors or they got jobs elsewhere, but other people can speak to this more than I can. But the Ruth Kingman was working on getting, she was actually, she said she wasn't going to actually help people specifically. She was going to help change people's minds so other people would help. But yeah, finding someplace to live when they came back was really difficult. She did actually help with some actual physical finding places to live, coming back to Berkeley and actually finding a house. When your house was gone, you'd sold it for practically nothing, or somebody had trashed it. Heard lots of interesting stories working on the Historical Society show. You know, farms that were watched by somebody and everything was taken except for the farm. It was really, really hard.
Any idea what happened to the church in Los Angeles we talked about by that last
I don't know.
sermon?
It's funny you should ask. Greg is the grandson of the person whose sermon he read. So Greg, can you speak to that?
Actually, I'm pretty sure it's still there. I'm not positive, though.
Time for a field trip, eh?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's time for Greg to get in touch with his roots. There's a wonderful book that several of you in this room pointed out to me called The Sunday Before. And it's a collection of sermons made by Japanese American pastors all over, mostly in the South, in the southern part of the state, because it was put together by Pasadena ACLU group, and also Quakers. And it turned out that there was a sermon in there from Greg's grandfather. I had another one that was a little edgier, and it was like, no, we have to do this, Greg. You have to read your grandfather's sermon. So that was really moving. Yes, ma'am? Yeah.
My father's side was taken from this location. Just personally, where is all those different areas of the church? Because I kind of want to get a visual of
Right.
when you talk about the sandwiches or this
Yeah.
and that. And the buses were out here or
Yes.
there. Okay.
Yeah. The buses, this is Dana, and the buses were between between Durant and Channing. I'd like to tell you the building was still here, but it's not. It burned down in 2016, and those of us who talk about it have a really hard time. When I did that first description of what the office looks like, I remember what it looks like, and it was really hard to write that. It was a wonderful building. The basement was stinky, dank, and and things like that, but we still loved it. The little library was wonderful. The small assembly, I remember many days as a choir member going in there for a cup of coffee between services. And yeah, so the new building wasn't quite open in time for this. I really wanted to perform in there, but Berkeley permitting and stuff like that. It's taking like a million years.
My dad mentioned like the church helped store something.
Yeah.
So did this,
the
this
tower
church,
is still here.
and that's where they stored
That was the safekeeping place, and it still is. It's a really cool room. If you ever happen to be a teenager here in the church, you get to have classes up there.
Wow.
It's right off of that balcony up there.
That's fantastic.
So that's where all the really, really important stuff were stored. That's where Hiro Kitayama's father's ashes were stored. Yeah. They did keep stuff safe. Yeah.
Well, this has been really fantastic for me because this is the first time I've been in the place.
Well, this is the same sanctuary, and this is where the Obata wedding was, right here.
Fantastic.
There's a kind of a white thing that's under this here that came up. Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Other questions? Susan, yeah.
Thank you, Kate. How long did people have to stay in Tanforan before they were taken to Topaz?
What was it? It was between May and September. What, about 6 months? 6 months in Tanforan. And Topaz was terrible, Manzanar was terrible, but I think probably from when I've talked to folks, Tanforan was just crazy because people went from a comfortable home to a filthy stable. You heard that Kitayama didn't want to talk about it because he wasn't in one. He says, you've heard about it, and that's all he says. But they just whitewashed over, horse manure and stuff. So I would suggest you go to the show if you're interested in getting some more just basic details about the incarceration. There's some items in there and the cases, and there's lots of information just about general life too, and clubs and businesses and stuff. But that's really interesting. But yeah, about 6 months, just on the other side of a fence from people who actually were like throwing food and blankets and all sorts of stuff. People were trying to talk through the fence, and it's bizarre. I don't know if you know where Tanforan is, and now it's kind of a big sort of sort of homes and things like that. The old racetrack's gone. Yeah, down here in San Bruno. Yeah. Wait, how'd you get out there? This is Bruce. Hey, aren't you the soldier? I'm sorry.
In the BART station, very close to Tanforan, there's a very good exhibit about this whole period. Lots of photographs. It's a permanent exhibit. I've seen it several times.
At the San Bruno station.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's worth seeing.
Yeah. Easy to get to by bar. Somebody in here has family that was in Tanforan, isn't that right? If you don't mind identifying yourself. Yeah. So you've heard the stories. Yeah. Yeah. And Dr. Obata had art classes at Tanforan, just like he did at Topaz. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to mention that our longtime member, Mitzi McKenna, went into a camp when she was 3. And it wasn't local. I think her family was in the Washington state area. But she used to tell us stories about it.
It depended on which family member you identified with. I know Arlene, if you're here, Arlene's family is from the Valley. And so even though they lived here in Berkeley, the patriarch was out in the Valley. So they ended up going to Omachi in Colorado. So it kind of depended on who you decided to go with. You didn't have much time. Did you notice how little time they had to decide what to do and where to go? Yeah. Except for Fred. What a rebel. Fred Korematsu, incredibly famous, right? You're seeing him at his silliest tonight.
How did you find out Ron Dellum's piece?
That's something. That was actually from doing the exhibit. Yeah, that came up. I can't remember who suggested that, but he led the reparations panel in the 80s, I think it was, when they finally got, how much was it, $15,000 a person or something like that from the US government. 20? Yeah, 20. 20,000, yeah, and that was his speech. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Ron Dellum speech is from the Congressional Record while they were debating the amount to give as reparations.
Yeah, so he grew up in Oakland, as you know probably already about Ron Dellum's. But that's it's a transcription of his speech. You could listen to it on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Other questions? Charlotte.
Kate, this is so moving, and all you guys are just great. What's the next step for your play?
Oblivion, yeah. Well, we did discuss the big musical numbers, and yeah, so there's actually great possibilities. I actually asked somebody from Berkeley Rep to come, and they were too busy today. And I had a script ready for them and everything. Oh well. Anyway, apparently they have a workshop in the summer, but I don't know. I'd love to see it staged. I'd love to see Miss Breed take off her pert hat and put it on the, by the way, you all have pictures of Miss Breed. This is the only picture of her, and this is just conjectural. Other than a baby picture of her with her most famous sister, Clara, in this detail of a painting by Chihiro Obata of the front of the church. And there's like a big soldier on the left that you can't see. But notice there's a little lady with a pert hat wearing rubber galoshes. Remember how you used to wear those over your high heels back in the day? Those little clear plastic things? And she's holding out a cup of something hot. And a woman is drinking it from her hand. Can you see that? I think that's Eleanor Breed. Because she was very bashful. So I think that's the only time we're going to see her. But I don't know. I don't know, Charlotte. Honest, I don't. Everybody got some ideas, Well, gee, Kim, what you got? This is Kimi Kodani Hill, the granddaughter of Chihiro Obata.
I'm Chihiro Obata's granddaughter,
yes.
And I purposely did not want to see the script because I just wanted to come here and see what Kate was doing. It's fabulous. So a few things. I think you should stage it in the new hall, maybe next year.
Okay.
It's so moving to be the Power Place. This is the church. This is the dates,
We did it on
April
purpose.
30th.
That's right.
That's when the Obatas were forced to leave. Yeah, why not? Put it maybe next year, same time.
Only a matter of money.
Well.
What could possibly stand in the way? I have so many wealthy producers that it should be easy. Well, could apply for a grant, I guess, from the government. That would be so cool, honest. It would be so cool.
There's so many layers, but I just want to comment on a few things. I really love the reading of the letter of Kitayama. That was really, really moving. I really like that. And is it Suzuki, the Reverend? Yeah, it's fabulous. I never heard that speech. I never, especially when things are new to me, and I've been talking about incarceration for over 40 years, really. Doing presentations about my grandfather. Of course, one person's experience of 120,000 people is unique because he was an artist. But nevertheless, there are 120,000 stories out there, very different experiences. I was really moved by hearing Monroe Deutsch's words, because I actually included that in the book I wrote, and it was to hear them spoken out loud in the context of this church. I found that really, really moving. People really did have a vision of what they knew was going to happen or what this meant, and that was very, very powerful. So thank you for that.
yes, mentioning Tanfran, the San Bruno BART station, if you're ever there, take a look at it, because what they did is they reconstructed the size of an open framework of the size of a stable. So you can stand in that space, and then you can see all the names of everybody who had been in Tanfran, the 8,000 people. Right now at a place in Emeryville, it's called J-SEI, that's capital J-SEI. There is an exhibit of photography. It'll be there, it's just been extended. It is going to be there till July 3rd. Paul Kitagaki is a professional photographer from the Sacramento Bee, and what he did is he took a lot of those Dorothea Lange photos that we're familiar with, and he spent years finding out who were those people, including his own family members, and what did they look like now, decades later. It's a really moving exhibit. So Kate and I met over there last month or so. And like I said, they have it up now. They've extended it, and it's until July 3rd. There's just so many layers. It's an incredible, rich history, and it is very much part of Berkeley history. My grandfather loved living in this town. He loved teaching. He was a professor of art at UC Berkeley for so long. He loved connecting people from his culture through the arts, through life experiences. And I think this is all just so important. I did meet Ruth Kingman once.
Oh, wow.
Way back in 1985, 86, when I was researching my grandfather. She said, I never saw him smile. He was very angry, but he kept it inside, but he gifted her with a beautiful painting. He told her, this is one of my careful works. And it's this beautiful rendition of flowering white dogwood, which is now going on here in Berkeley. And I think for both my grandparents, my grandmother taught ikebana, flower arrangement. When they left Berkeley at this incredibly beautiful time, because we're all enjoying all the flowers right now, it was very much, this town and this environment was very much with them the entire time that they had to stay away, and with many other Berkeley families, But anyway, thank you, Kate.
No, thanks, Kimmy. Thank you. Thanks. It was funny. First of all, Kimmy got me that letter, the one at the end, the two letters to each other. Kimmy actually got me onto that collection. I think it's Smithsonian, which I had seen, and it really brought the whole thing to a nice close. Also, I was thinking, I just lost it. I was fascinated by what he says in his letter about the reason people are not behaving in a normal way is because the color is all wrong. It's such a classic artist point of view. And Minnie Okubo said the same thing, if there's just a tree, if there's just something green, I'll be okay. So the sensitivity to beauty or lack of it, right, and what it does to your psychology was really interesting. That was good to read. So, anybody else? Other questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Bob.
You mentioned Fred Koromatsu.
Yes.
He was arrested for evading.
Yes. When he was walking with his girlfriend Ida down the street in San Leandro.
That's right.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think people may know he's actually buried in Mount View
Yeah,
Cemetery.
Kimmy took me there. It's a really amazing stone. It's covered with stones and decorations, yeah. And you know why he's so famous, not for running away with his girlfriend Ida. Yes. Yes.
4 decades later, there were proceedings in the district court, and supposedly because of new evidence of the necessity for the order, his conviction was overturned.
Right.
And the story is quite finished. The story may not be true. I heard on the history podcast that his 7th grade daughter was in class, and the teacher was talking about this unfortunate incident in our country's history, and she learned for the first time about her father.
Oh. Everybody knew about him but her, I guess. Well, some people think you talk to some people and they said, oh, he was a criminal. He was arrested. He evaded. We all went to Tanforan and he didn't, So there's a little bitterness there, yeah. But the famous fighting Irishman, what's his name, Collins, you know, Wayne Collins, sorry, Wayne Collins. We had a great show on him over at the exhibit as well. And he worked with many people who were just about to lose their citizenship. And he also worked with Fred and said, you know, the ACLU said, you want to take this, are you willing to be the person who takes this to the Supreme Court? And Fred said, sure, why not? Yeah, so it was unlawful imprisonment for 150, you know, million people, 1,000 people, whatever it was, yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting story. But it all started because he was such a hopeless romantic. At least that's the way I tell the story.
Yeah, I think Fred Korematsu's daughter actually told that story of being in class and learning about her father at the Berkeley Historical Society, one of the Sunday afternoon special events.
Yeah, that's in that film. That's really interesting, yeah. Anything else, or you ready to go to Fenton's, or? I'd love to stage it. We'll just have to see how it goes. If you guys know some people with big money, you just tell me, because I have other things to do now. So, yeah. Anything else? We good? Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Luca and Zach and Jackie. Thank you. Good sound.